Flosstube. It's Arlene here. It is Friday, August 16th, 2024. Happy to be back here with all of you. If you are returning, welcome. Thank you for coming back. If you're new, welcome. I am about to talk about Needlework Marketplace, and I know sometimes tags and things like that help you find new people. So especially if you're new, I'm glad you're here and you found me. We all know there's tons of floss tubes out there, and I appreciate anyone who wants to give a few minutes of their day listening to me. So, as I'm just going to jump right in, there are basically two topics of today, but two big topics. One is the Needlework Marketplace and my releases, and the other is the Grace Notes retreat that I just went to last weekend. With a little transition thing in between those two topics, which I'm very glad that I was going to do this yesterday, even the day before, and then it just didn't happen. And then something came in the mail yesterday. So it was like, perfect. So glad I waited to do the video until Friday. So, especially if you're new, I design under the name Works by ABC. My initials are ABC. And I am participating in the Needlework Marketplace, which is an online wholesale shopping event that is happening next weekend. I should have gotten the dates, 27th, 15, 22nd through the 24th, 5th, something like that. It is not for retail. It's not that any stitcher goes on and purchase. It's for stores to go and purchase and be the first ones to have new things. It's basically an online version of Nashville. And Nashville is the in-person wholesale shopping opportunity that happens in March. This evolved a few years back, basically because of COVID times. It's changed in little ways, but basically this year, there's going to be an opportunity for stores. I think there's like over 200 stores that have registered, and there's over 100 exhibitors. I think that's the number. You could go on the website and get precise numbers if you need to know these things, and I'll try to remember to link it below. So, as has often been the case with my floss tubes, like over the last couple of years, I usually don't have much stitching to show because I'm working on my models. But when I get to a reveal video like this, it's exciting because I have a lot to show. So we're going to jump right in. My first one to share, they're not in any particular order. I really love the way this one looks. I mean, I like that about all of them. So I am presenting to you Pinwheel. This is all, and I was suggested that I hold stitching up a little bit longer than I have been in videos so people can really see it, which I think is a great suggestion. This is stitched using a variegated, I'm trying to make it even here. There we go. A Threadworks variegated thread called Merlot. And I absolutely love how the variegation turned out. I think you can see it to some degree. Obviously, we know when you see things in person, it's that much more amazing. It's a monochrome piece, so you can stitch it in any color you want, anything that appeals to you. It's based off of a quilt pattern. I am not a quilter per se. That doesn't mean I don't own some quilt books that I like to look at for inspiration, and that's more or less where this came from. But it was also the idea in my blackwork world. I haven't done a blackwork design in a couple of years, but you often talk about filling patterns. I mean, you also talk about that in terms of needlepoint. But I was thinking filling, meaning here's an area, make the same thing happen over and over. I could do that in cross stitch. And so you will see each of these 8 squares, and they overlap, is a different pattern of stitches. It's all full crosses. It is 117 by 121, so it's not huge. Got a weird lighting thing going on today. I'm just going to keep going with it. And I stitch it on Witchell Country French linen in the color called Cafe Mocha. I know I talked about this linen, and actually I think showed the thread and fabric combination some videos ago back in the spring. It's a different kind of Witchell to me. It's soft. It's not the stiff that I personally do not like about Witchell, but I love this. It only comes in 4 colors, 32 count, I think 28 count also. And I might need to be using those other colors at some other time. So there we go. Pinwheel. First one to share with you. All right. Next up on the list, if you've been around, I think some people know that I love to tell stories. And when I have a story behind the inspiration for a design, I like to share it. So let me do this. Let me show the design and then talk about where it came from. So this is called cameo glass. And I think especially when you look at it from a distance, you can see what's going on there. There's a flower. It is, it only uses 6 colors of DMC, with really only 2 of them being the majority of what you stitch. And it's stitched on Blueberry Pie from Grace Notes Fabric. Again, the retreat I just went to. I'll talk more about that soon. And let me talk about the inspiration for this. Oh wait, let me also just let you know it is 100 by 101. So you could see it's not huge, and I stitched it on 32 count. So here's the story. Sorry, I got more things to share related to this. Back in September, October, I know I shared with you all on a video about going to the Baltimore Museum of Art to see an amazing exhibit. And you can go back and watch my video and the review and the books and all of that. After I'd spent quite some time in that exhibit, I then was wandering around the museum. And, I'm imagining a lot of people like me, you get museum fatigue after a while. But, I was there, and I am so glad I wandered into a particular space. I couldn't tell you exactly what the area was called, but there were a number of pieces in, like, glass cabinets that were glassware. And I saw, this is my picture, I saw this. And I was just like taken with it. Like I was trying to figure out what's going on there. And especially, here's a close-up picture. And I mean, this is my pictures through glass. So it actually, it's decent enough. And I was trying to think, well, I'm thinking about like Wedgwood jasperware, I think is what it's called, meaning a solid color on with white things on it. So here, for example, is a book on Wedgwood, and what I'm referring to is jars and vases and things that look like this. But immediately I knew this was something different, because you could even see the relief on this. And you also, it's not glass per se. Is it porcelain or something like that? But this is glass. So I go to read the description because I wanted to know what this was. Was it something that was etched into the glass? Meaning, and I have, here we go. In my whole time when I was really into researching all of this, my friend McKenna in a thrift store had found this thimble where you see glass, and it's etched in. I don't know if you can really see it. But this seemed different. Sure enough, it is. Well, I went down a rabbit hole to learn all about English cameo glass. Now, it is, and actually the best thing is to read from what I wrote on the back here. And I included these pictures on the back. So the description of this vase. Cameo glass imitated the ancient Roman technique of engraving gems to create relief designs. Here, the artisans etched and carved through an outer layer of opaque white glass, leaving calla lilies, this one, and other flowers in relief, while exposing an underlay of rose-colored glass. So this is my very simplified version from reading this book. Imagine a glass vase that, in that case, it was red. And there's red glass, and then over it is put white, opaque glass of some kind. And then a design is sketched on it, and in effect, the areas of white that you don't want get carved away. Now, there does seem to be some acid things that help carve it away for big sections. And then is carved very delicately so that, where's the close-up picture, you truly get an amazing work of art. And like I said, went down a rabbit hole. Ooh, good lesson here, folks. I came home, or probably when I was on the train, I'm Googling. I was able to get these words, English cameo glass. It was a well-known, its heyday was in the late Victorian era, mostly coming from England, but inspired by earlier time, including the Roman time. But then there was a resurgent, in the 1100s or something. But it's beautiful stuff. I was online searching for images, and this, okay, whoop, I went this colored section here. Okay. And I was able to find some images. I wanted more information than these little pieces of websites could give me. And it was sort of frustrating. Like, in this day and age of the internet, why can't I find more? Well, lesson learned, sometimes a book is the best place to find information, because I discovered there was a book, like the book written about it, these husband and wife in 1980 or 81 is the copyright, 1980. Relative easy to find a copy for like $10 on some used website. And it had everything I wanted in terms of information. For 1980, to have this number of color pictures in it, I mean, there's multiple sections of colors. It is a whole history. I'm sorry, I can't hold this up higher. There's a whole history of the various companies that were well known. The one in the Baltimore Museum of Art came from a company called Thomas Webb and Sons. I just, again, went down this rabbit hole. And I was trying to figure out, because when I get all into something, how could I turn this into a cross stitch of some kind? I mean, I love, in effect, monochrome designs. You've seen that on a number of my designs. And I knew I could I could just like import a picture, but when you do that in a computer program, you get, like way more colors than you want, and you have to play around with it. But I started to play around with it to see what could I create with this idea that I wanted, a nice, beautiful, dark, solid color as the fabric. And you see the white relief. And so this is my take on a piece of English cameo glass. Again, could go down a rabbit hole. You'll find some stuff on the internet. If you're really intrigued, get a copy of the book that I just showed you. But I love the way it turned out, and that I was able to get something that looks, good, and only using six different DMC colors. So not like some crazy 50 to get the image going. So, like I said, Grace Notes Blueberry Pie. I love this fabric that she came out with last year when I requested it. And this is now the third design I've used it for. So there you go. Cameo glass is what I'm calling it. And wait, did I say already? 100 by 101? Okay. My next design also has a story behind it. And like I did before, let me show it to you and then share the story. But when I say it, I actually mean show you them, because it's two parts. We see this, and we see this. There we go. You can see me looking in between. So I have called this flip-flopped geometry. And you get both charts. And let me talk a little more about it. One of the places that I love to look for inspiration, I have a number of sources, but one of them is looking at old pattern books. And when I say that, we're talking pattern books from like the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries that you can find various museums and excuse me, institutions that have copies of the books have scanned in. I mean, obviously there's no copyright worries of anything published in 1592. And so I found in one of these books this, and this is me kind of recreating it, this square. And I just, from my geometric mind, I kind of paused and I was looking at it because it's not symmetrical. I mean, at first glance, you see this same, you see these three flowers in those corners. But then if you look up here, you're like, well, but there's not a flower in that corner. And you see this little swirly thing. There's a swirly thing there, but it's not identical. And I was just looking at it and thinking, well, how could this have been used? And my thought was, well, if you use 4 of them and rotate it around, you'll get a design. But the question was, which corner was supposed to be on the inside and which corner was supposed to be on the outside? So I, charted it in, and then I played around with it, with taking a turn each of these 4 corners being in the center, and what would happen. So here, the one corner that has that, knot work thing, that's right here. Now the other three corners had flowers. And so what ends up happening is that these two, I think, are the ones that are in effect identical. Just, have I got that right? Yeah, I think these two are identical. They're just off kilter, but this one is different. And I just, again, just being intrigued. What was this initially? Where in the world was there someone in the 16th century that did anything with this? I don't know. And again, how was it supposed to be used? I mean, it could have been used in any other way. My brain went to this idea of rotating. So I thought, well, which one do I like best? I didn't have an answer for that, but I decided to stitch two of them. There was no reason to stitch four of them because these two they start to look very similar. I thought two, which actually turn out to be the opposite corners. So this one, oh look, now I also did this from a picture. A picture of my stitching. Let me line this up correctly. There we go. So if you just focus on like the knot work thing, did I do that right? Yes, they're both in the same location. And so for this version, that knot work piece, the knot work in the corner is in the center, rotated around 4 times. And the knotwork piece, I'm trying to hold it the same way, if it was on the outer edge, the outer corner, am I holding this right? No, I'm not? Yes, I think. It rotates to be this way. I used the same threads in both of them and in the same location. So again, just focusing on that knotwork piece, that knotwork corner, if you see that corner in the center of, this one, and the corner area of this one, it's using the same thread. Now, what I decided to do with this, and it's hard to visualize what it was going to look like until I stitched it, because I have always loved DMC variations threads. They're DMC's version of a variegated. For me, I can get them in like my local Michaels. Obviously, a number of LNSs do carry them, but I know sometimes there's something to be said about when you don't have access to LNS, but you do have access to the big box stores. Anyway, this particular color, which is not showing up very well, is made up of light purples and light blues. You can actually go on the DMC website and find what DMC colors make up each of their variation threads, and those are the colors that I used in this. So the variations, what's showing up almost white, because you just can't see it well, all around here is what I use the variations for. And it's the same right around here. Okay. And then inside of that, there's 2 colors. Outside of that, there's 2 colors. So it uses a total of 5 colors, all DMC, with one of those 5 being the DMC variation threads. And it plays on my mind in terms of how to do something, or how to take a question of which way was that supposed to go and bring it into the world of, what could it look like? It's just a fun, to me, unique geometric thing. And obviously you could stitch it in any colors you want. I suppose you could make it a monochrome design. You could only stitch one of them, obviously. I stitched on Zweigart charcoal gray, 32 count linen. As you can see, 32 count is often my sweet spot. And I chose that color because, again, I wanted to do a design with the DMC variations. And I just love how they turned out. If you were at my Stitch NJ retreat a few weeks back, and not that I was sitting and stitching much, but anytime I was stitching, I was working on one of these, and I don't even remember. One of them was done and the other one was not done. I don't even remember. I think I stitched this one first, so I think I was working on this one. So there you go. Called it Flip-Flopped Geometry. Each of them is 117 by 117. And I also talked about the threads already. So there you go. Okay, the next 2 don't have as involved stories. So I think I said I have 5 total, so there's 3. The next one, I wanted to do a little small, oops, I just put that in the wrong place. Let me just put this aside here. Just a fall small, and this is what I came up with. And I am calling it Wreath of Autumn Flowers. It is just 61 by 61. I finished it as, like a little, oops, sorry. I want the bow to be on the bottom. A little pillow finish, however you might do smalls. I used Weeks Dye Works, just loving the variegation that you can see, which sort of shows up. There's one that shows up pretty decently. Fall colors. I was looking at this and playing around like, well, it could be done in spring colors. I don't know how much winter colors, but I decided to use it for my fall small. So Weeks, you could see inside those roses, maybe you can see or not see, there are half stitches, one strand, just to give it a little dimension. I stitched this on 28 count Kenneth by Grace Notes Fabric. Why 28 count when 32 is my good spot? Because it's what I had. And it was just easy enough to use it and go ahead and start stitching with it. And if you are into smalls, there you go. I obviously did my best to give DMC substitutes for the Weeks. Some of them are easier than others. But just a little small, 61 by 61. And then the last new release to share is not super new if you've seen my last couple of videos, particularly 2 videos ago where I put this in the screenshot, thumbnail. And that is the design that was an exclusive for my Stitch NJ retreat. So they did have, the attendees there did have the opportunity to get it, but it has not been available until now. It's based on this fabric that was, you can see a project bag, and the design is actually 4 biscornos. I stitched them on red and black because with white thread, I was inspired by this. Obviously, you can stitch on whatever you want, but because of the color scheme, the pattern is called black and white and red all over. Stitch count for each of them is 39 by 39. If you've never assembled a biscorno before, this is me saying it's not as difficult as it might look at first. And there's some pretty decent video tutorials on YouTube. So and obviously you can stitch square designs and, I don't know, put the 4 together and make a nice little framed piece or something. But if you're into biscornos, maybe you like these. And now it can be available to anyone, or anyone who has a store that is participating in Needlework Marketplace. All 5 of these designs will be on my Etsy store about a month, 6 weeks or so after the event. It's just to give the opportunity for stores that are purchasing to have that, little leg up. When I put things on my Etsy store, they're available both as paper copies and PDFs. So if that's something you really want, you will be able to get it for these 5. The PDF is what I'm referring to. It just won't be immediately. So there we go. It's always exciting to share stitching with you guys, like stitching of my own designs, which I typically only share when it's time to reveal a bunch of them at once. But truly, what you've just seen there is what I've been stitching on the last few months. Let's just say since Nashville. Oh, I've shared a couple things, but basically that's it. So let's go to that little transition topic that I mentioned before, that I was glad that I hadn't done this video yesterday because of the mail. This is the Just Cross Stitch Autumn issue, Autumn 2024. I know the digital version is out because a friend of mine had sent me a picture. I don't know when this is on the stands. I'm assuming people who have subscriptions, it's in their mail or already received. They've sent me this, so I figured it's okay to share. And I have a piece in here, and it is called Autumn Intertwined. And it also, and maybe I did think about this. It's basically, this inspired my fall small, the wreath one that I just showed you, although it wasn't in the most direct way, only because I haven't had this in my possession for the last few months. I sent it off to Just Cross Stitch, I think like late February, and it just came back to me. They send it back. I think it's usually they send it back when the magazine comes out. Autumn Intertwined. I will say this. Let me just cover over part of the pattern. There are mistakes in the key. And I was just communicating with Just Cross Stitch this morning. We figured out how it happened. Okay, they didn't double check something. It's okay. Figured it out. I stitched this using 6 weeks. Again, that's how I'm saying 28 count Kenneth, 6 weeks, similar to this. And what's listed in the chart is 3 weeks and 3 DMCs. So I will post, I'll try to copy it below, although I'd have to kind of like approximate what the symbols look like, which should be decent enough, easy enough to do. I'll also post on my Instagram. And Just Cross Stitch said they, have a section of their website where they do oopsies or whatever they call it. But if you're someone who likes the variegated threads, what I loved about this, if you look at that outline, what I loved about the variegated threads in this, if you look at the outline, that is a pretty variegated thread for me, meaning you could see yellows into browns, you can see green areas. I typically don't stitch with these highly variegated ones, but when I was looking through my threads and fall colors, and I realized that I had this one that really pulled all the fall colors together, and knowing that it was just going to be for the outline, that actually turned out to be a perfect place to use a highly variegated thread, and I'm going to keep that lesson in mind for the future. That thread is one of the ones that didn't get recorded properly in the key in the magazine. It's called Tobacco Road. And again, I will post in all the places that I can to note so that you know the correct threads. The 3 that are listed the weeks are the correct weeks. It's just the other 3 that they just listed the DMC. So there you go, Just Cross Stitch magazine. I haven't even really looked through the rest of the magazine. Again, just this past 24 hours, just life things going on. Doing prep work for the Needlework marketplace and all of that, and wanting to make sure I could get this video out to you guys. So if you get the Just Cross Stitch magazine, look for me there. So what that makes, I have 5 new designs. If we add in this, I could say 3 of those new ones are on Grace Note fabric. Sorry, 3 out of the 6, because I'm including this, are on Grace Note fabrics. And then and then one of them is a Witchell, 2 of them are Zweigart. So this is why it's a good transition for me to share about the Grace Notes retreat. Although, one last thing. I know people like to know thread counts, and I don't have this memorized. 64 by 64. And you could see I just finished it like, I forget whether this was my idea in terms of finishing or whether they said, would you finish it as a hanging something? I don't remember. Finish it as a small in some way. And that's what I did. Okay. So let's transition. Last weekend, I had the great opportunity to attend the Grace Notes retreat, Grace Notes Fabric. Corinne Simpson, her daughter Colleen works with her now, I believe, full time, her husband John. I met them in 2023 at Nashville. They had gone there, just to get their new fabric out. They were a new fabric company, and they've been found. I mean, my design is not the first one on their fabric that has been in Just Cross Stitch. I know there was one in is it the summer issue or the Halloween issue? One of those. Because the Halloween issue is out now, right? Yeah. Anyway, and the fact that they were putting on a retreat in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is less than 2 hours from me, a driving retreat that I can drive to, one that takes place during the summer in terms of my teaching life, would work out well. And so last summer, it was their first retreat. And when I went, it was the first retreat I had gone to that I wasn't in charge of since October of 2019, since before COVID. And I put on my own retreats in 2022 and 2023. So I had such a good time last year, mostly because I wasn't in charge of things. I was there with some friends, enjoyed it very much. And of course, I wanted to sign up and go again this year. So it was sort of your typical time frame, starting on a Thursday midday until Sunday. We were given a bag, a good canvas, like supermarket shopping bag is the way I can certainly see myself using this Grace Notes fabric. And I'm just going to show you some of the things that we got, some of them that were in the bag and other things that I just acquired. And if you are someone who attended the retreat and gave out things or gave me something and I miss it, I'm so sorry. I think I threw back in here everything that I thought was related to the retreat, but I'm just giving that caveat. So there is a booklet with all kinds of information, some freebie charts in it, just schedule things. Corinne, John and Chris, and Colleen, her sister Jamie. There's also a team, a retreat staff team. And while they were all, there's 5 of them listed here, I think it kind of extends to a few more people. While I remember them from last year, this year I started to have some connections with them, which I'm going to show in a minute. So they're more than just like names here. They became a little more like real people to me, just because of some wonderful interactions. So lots of referring to that, particularly about times and things like that. In our bags, all right, see I have freebie table stuff here. I know this was in the bag. There was chapstick, like I had given out at my retreat. Everyone got some thread. This is Floss Tones. It is a new venture. I believe it's Jamie, Corinne's sister, that's leading the venture of adding in thread to all their fabric line. There were some business cards, a needle threader. This little piece, which my friends and I were trying to figure out what is this? And we got the answer. It's intended to be a bookmark. I'm just going to use this magazine. I don't know if you would use it, but let's say you're on this page and you want to hold on to where you were. If you put it on the corner, use it as a bookmark. It's a different way to have a bookmark, which I thought was kind of clever. Just some other things that are in here. Little notebook. Everyone got a piece of Grace Notes fabric. I believe, I checked with my friends, I think everyone got the same thing called Rooted in Grace, a 28 count linen. What else was in the bag? A Grace Notes fabric pen. A needle minder for the retreat. And I know this needle minder was made by Mind Your Needles, Annette. She came to my retreat. She also vended at my retreat. She's a big needle minder person, certainly here in New Jersey, New York area. So she made those for our, that just got magnetized to something else here. I have a tape measure in here. Oh, I feel like I have more than one tape measure because one was in the bag and one was given out. A tag, if you are the kind of person that likes to keep track, like especially if you want to attach it to a project bag, all the details. A tape, I think this tape measure was in the bag. Our name tags, which, name tags. Corinne had this idea this year that, so I have 2 stars because they represent the 2 years I've been there. Those who were there new this year had 1 star, and I forget whether it was green or purple that was for this year. And I think that's her vision going forward is about which stars you have. Last year, it was definitely a bigger retreat this year. I think it was about close to 150 people, or I think something like that. Last year was more like 80 or so. We were in a different hotel, and I think many people, including my friends and I who were there both years, really liked the hotel we were at this year and hope they'll stay there. As a little make and take project, there was an opportunity to make a ring and with beads on it. And you could use the ring for like a project tag or like on a zipper. You could use it in various ways. But I saw so many people doing this that of course I had to do it just to attach it to your name tag. And I was walking over with a friend of mine to go make it, and we had just seen other friends of ours, one who had written just her name and someone who had written something with a stitch. And I'm like, I don't really want to write Arlene. Stu, I can write Works by ABC. So I have that attached. And if I ever need to use that, I know where I can find it attached to my name tag. What else is here? Just a few. Let me share this, and this. At our table, I'm so sorry, I forget. Somebody came around and handing out these little crocheted. You could use it as a scissor fob. You could use it as a bag pull, but made crocheted items for everybody. At our table, There was someone handing out stickers. Please be patient. I'm from the 1900s. She had quite the variety of them. Uh, Pretty sure this is something that somebody was handing out around the room and not just at our table. Another little needle minder, and it says "Find joy in the journey" with a frog. There's a whole like game that was being played about frogs and get the frog and who has the most frogs, and when you make a mistake in your stitching. I wasn't really playing along with it, but there were some people at my table that were getting a little competitive about how many frogs and what you're going to get as a prize. So frogs were around. There are my table. So I was there with, there were five of us, five of my friends, four of us, four Americans, and my friend Kim from Canada, who had come down to my retreat just a few weeks ago. It was so cool when you say goodbye to someone that lives quite a distance away that you're saying, see you in 3 weeks. So she had come down from Canada, and she had driven with another Canadian friend of hers who came, who also had two other friends. So our table were four Americans and four Canadians. We were the international table. I asked Kim, I said, do you think there's any other Canadians here? And she didn't think so. I don't know if there was somebody else from another country, but we were the international table. So the two Canadians handed out some very sweet things, and I am sorry if I confuse. Like, no, one of them gave us Canadian pouches, something to use as a scissor fob, piece of fabric, and thread to make a. I mean, I feel like I want to do this, like a sweet little Canadian design, and gave us fabric and thread to do that, and of course, a Canadian pencil. It was, and then, and there might, some of the other stuff I'm about to show you may have originally been in this pouch, because the other Canadian I'm sorry, Maria and Eva, let me talk real people, okay? Melissa was the one who handed out stickers. I think I've got so my friends, Regina and Megan were handing these out to everybody. There's a little nail file and a little brush, which is not intended for makeup. It's intended for like brushing away any like fabric, or thread little pieces that you sometimes get, especially when you're frogging. More stickers in here. One of a kind. Love just a lot. Stickers are clearly making a comeback. I think I shared. I had done stickers for my own retreat, and that was from suggestions of people. Like, I had no idea that stickers were becoming a big thing, but clearly they are. A Canadian zipper pull. I mean, I feel very lucky that I got to interact with people. Another Canadian pencil. What else little notebook. Skittles. Oh, and then Regina and Megan were also handing out floss tags. And, the interesting philosophy, do you put a hole in the tag or not? And I love this thought that, different people have different ways they want to use floss tags. Some want a large hole for the main thing and a small hole for the leftovers. So I have it both ways with beautifully stitched pictures on floss tags from them. What else in my bag before I get to, let me just see if there's anything else that I'm missing. That, again, there's just some freebie table, just stuff. That's right. Here's another needle minder. Oh, with a little frog. And I forget whether this was in our bag or somebody handed these out to everybody. I mean, there was a lot of kindness in the room, and that was amazing on so many levels, So, Grace notes, fabrics, as you can imagine, was a big draw. They had a whole store set up. Simply put, I have a good relationship with Corinne to use her fabric in my designs. I wanted to grab a piece of strawberry latte. Getting into you can see the sun is coming closer, so I got to wrap this up soon. Otherwise, I'm going to be in direct sunlight. It's a really pretty mottled pink, but not overly mottled. And then she's going to send me a couple of others, including a brand new one that is coming out for our Needlework Marketplace, because they're also participating in it. So when I get those, I will absolutely share. Some people, let's just say, bought a lot of fabric, because when you see it all laid out in front of you in the huge variety of colors and linen and Ada and Joe, like when you see it all and this is an in-person opportunity to pick out what you love, especially when it comes to hand-dyed fabrics, where a computer picture is only good as a computer picture. And there's no store that's going to carry their entire line because they have so many. I think they are selling to stores. So it was just great to be able to look at all their fabrics and make notes of ones that I might potentially be want to do a use for a design. As I mentioned before about her team, I learned, I think it was on Thursday night, the first night, a friend of mine said, Arlene, you need to go across the room. She's like, no, you need to go across the room. I'm like, oh, and I figured out, is somebody stitching on one of my designs. Ooh, sorry, back up. I also had a trunk show there. So I have my models and patterns to sell. It wasn't the only trunk show, but it was actually really cool to be in that environment where I could see people looking at my designs and them coming over and asking me questions. I mean, it was just a wonderful atmosphere for me on so many levels. Not being in charge, being with friends, just enjoying myself and stitching in a comfortable environment, and finding that there's a lot of love for my designs out there. So my friend Megan said, go across the room, and then finally she just brought me across the room. And a sweet woman named Sherry, who is one of Corinne's team, was working on my Majestic Lace piece. That's the big one that came out at Nashville, that I stitched on a purple fabric, and she was pretty close to finishing it. And when she heard or saw whatever, she was helping with name tags or something, and she saw that I was going to be there, she's like, well, I got to definitely bring it now. And she made sure she was going to finish it while there. She also so sweetly asked if I would stitch on it, which I just felt so honored that somebody wanted somebody else's stitches on their piece. And so I did. And then, was it Friday night? I'm pretty sure it was on Friday night that she had her major maybe it was Saturday night. And here you go. This is the best I can do. You can also see pictures on my Instagram, worksbyabc. And then, of course, turn it this way. Here's the lights. Here's the two of us with our pieces. Because, like I said, I had my trunk show there, so I was able to run over and grab mine so we could take a picture together. I stitched on 36 count over 2, so an 18 count. She was stitching on a 14 count Ada, so hers is slightly larger because of the counts. And it was I just felt so honored to be a part of someone finishing a major piece. It was very sweet of her. There was another woman, Mary Barbara. There were a few people in the room that were stitching on my 324. A woman named Mary Barbara is stitching a tiny version. So if you look at the quarter right there, she's stitching 32 count over 1. And I love the look of tiny things like that. I tend to not do that with my own designs because I feel like sometimes it puts people off, despite the fact everything I always write is choose your own fabric, choose your own thread. I know there's some people that look at things and say, well, I got to stitch it the way the model was. Anyway, so I love that she's stitching small. And then she also asked if I would stitch on her project. Oh, I did not put that picture on here. Sorry about that. Oh, no, I did. Sorry. So it was a day or two later I went over. And if you look right there, she also asked if I would do my initials. So for that block of 5x5, if you know my 324 design, I was able to do my initials, ABC, with a few other stitches. And these were, wait, hold up. Did I put the other? Sorry, there was a third one to share. Yes, I did put her on. So Hannah, another one of Corinne's team, also was stitching on Majestic Lace. I think there's a story behind multiple people starting it and Sherry being the one that's way far ahead. I don't know if Hannah was restarting it or what, but at a certain point our tables just happened to literally be on almost opposite sides of the room. She came running over. Look. She's holding up. She has stitched the outline of Majestic Lace. Now, I've never seen someone stitch for any of my designs to start on a border and stitch like that, or at least none of the big ones. Let me clarify, none of the big ones. Her fabric is like a mystery fabric, so it's got a real funky, and you can see I'm hitting the sun here, a real funky, cool color to it, but don't ask Corinne to say I want third 2-count linen of that because it's one of those mystery, like, all right, not going to be able to reproduce it. So I just thought, and she was so excited, as you would imagine, that the border matched up. And I asked her, is there a reason, just genuinely curious, why, for such a large piece, why she did that? And she just said, I did. I mean, I know I've seen sampler people will will sometimes do that. And then, she had, on that Sunday, like as things were winding down around noon, she came running up to me to show she had stitched on one of the flowers. I have some pictures on my Instagram and also have commented on her Instagram so you could find her. I'll try to remember to list her below. The other piece, the sweet kindness of Sherry, she is the one that created, I think 100% herself, a quilt that raffle tickets were being sold for to raise money for some organizations. And I remember she did this last year, although this year, because I got to know her through some conversations, it was more of a real person. But just like last year, she took one of the fabrics that were used in the quilt. There were many different fabrics, and made something for everybody in the room. So these are like the thread beds, that'll hold your thread. I mean, you could also use it as a needle. You can also stick a needle in there, but certainly it's got that, I don't know what you call it, that'll help keep, just individual threads as you need it. And this, like I said, this was one of the fabrics that was used. A lot of sweetness and kindness in that room, at least as I experienced it. We had a lot of fun in enabling, and not just like your typical pattern and certainly fabric enabling. Noticed behind me, one of the tables was a woman who I knew who had come to my Stitch NJ, and noticed that she had this really unique back pillow. And I was trying it out, and I showed my friends, and the next thing you knew, we were ordering a whole bunch of them from Amazon and getting them delivered the next day to the hotel. My friend Megan had come with this tablet holder that many people were intrigued about, and 3 people at my table ordered a tablet holder to be delivered at the hotel. That it just was, I got a back pillow, I didn't need a tablet holder. And I'm glad I have it, certainly for future sitting long time periods like at retreats, but also just being the fun and the camaraderie and the laughter. And our table got this reputation of are enabling to how many people had that back pillow in their Amazon carts and so on. I think we were the only ones that were actually getting it delivered during the retreat. But it really was a great time, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity, especially just so soon after my own retreat, just that opportunity to just be a stitcher and have some lovely conversations and meet some lovely people. So I'm going to wrap this up because you can see, I've talked about this before, there's a skylight right above me, and there are certain times of the day that I can't sit up here unless I want to sit directly in the sun. And I knew the timing. I'm like, oh, can I fit this in? I'm like, yes, I need to fit this in because I have other things to do later on in the day that I didn't want to wait. So I'm going to end this before the sun really gets in my eyes. So there you go, Needlework Marketplace releases. If you like anything you see, make sure to contact any LNS that you like to order from, and they can order and get it for you. If you see the Just Cross Stitch magazine, you'll see my design in there. And a huge thank you to everyone involved in the Grace Notes retreat for helping me have a great time. So I hope everyone is off to a good year. As a teacher, January is not the beginning of a year to me. It's always this time of year in terms of starting a school year. So if you're off to the beginning of a school year, your kids are off or something like that, I hope it's all is good. Stay well. Till next time.